G'day, g'day, g'day. So today we're doing a bit of a hazard reduction and we're going to be burning through this lantana that I cleared a bit earlier. To start us off, we've got a little bit of casuarina needles just off to the side here. There's casuarina needles all in here. Now we're going to get this fire started. So whatever you like to light fire with, lighters, matches, flint, quartz and slate. Alrighty. So the better your tinder is, the faster your fire is going to start, the less fuel you have to waste from your trusty lighter, less effort you have to put in with your friction fire, your bow drill. The fire pump is a pretty cool one. Fire piston. So we're going to let that grow and we're going to kind of just burn through this and go from there. You can get more casuarina and kind of help that along. Casuarina needles. Yeah, get some love in you. Late winter in Australia, it's the 1st of August. So it is the burning season here in Australia. And I've been travelling around the country having yarns with tribal elders about techniques of how you do fire management and things. And there is much to be changed in this country with our way of fire management. And we're going to be talking about that today. So as this gets going, the common practice in Australia is that you burn from the roadside to some distance into the forest, and that's the first mistake right there, because the roadside is your fire break. And what I mean by that is once the fire hits a fire break, it goes out, it breaks the fire, right? So it stops it from going any further. As I'm doing this, I'm sort of snapping these into little easy pieces that'll pick on up, because you want to have all this kind of be easy to fuel. Now another thing commonly that you'll find in the fire management techniques around the world with like your rural fire services, they let the fire get too big and move way too fast. And that might be due to lack of funding and thinking that they have to, I don't know, cover a larger area real quick, but that's kind of counterproductive. So you want to be able to keep it small, and usually smaller than about 2 foot in height, like the top of the flame. So we don't want this to get bigger than 2 foot in height. It's about 1 foot off the ground, so that's only 1 foot in height as it is. But yeah, so the reason you want to keep it under about 2 foot, maximum 2 foot, is so that you can actually see what you're burning, because we have a lot of food plants around here that we really want to keep alive. And I'll just show you a couple of those, eh? So, near my little bag here, you got this grass here, right? This is your razor grass. You don't want to pull at this, otherwise it'll slice your hands like a razor. It produces a gluten-free grain that's red and very pretty. Then over here, I'll come on up here. This lovely plant here, that's a variety of wattle. So that's a legume tree, right? One of those acacias. And again, we don't want to burn that. It will sort of have a bit of fire tolerance. However, we want to largely keep the fire away from its leaves and root system by a good foot in diameter. The charcoal we're creating here is going to be creating some absolutely beautiful soil. I want to keep on snapping these sticks in there because we have way too much air space in between all this lantana, so we want to kind of compress it down. What we're also doing here is we're activating the seeds that are in the soil. So a lot of plants in Australia and Africa and much of the world rely on fire to germinate. There's a lot of the grasses here that will actually smother them, outcompete them, and prevent the seeds from actually getting to the soil. So we're also getting rid of a bit of that. In addition, there's a lot of weedier species, introduced species, that will also over-compete. However, they're unable to compete with fire in much the way that the native plants can. So the natives have a bit more of a standing against that. Now, lantana is a very useful plant, and it's very underrated and kind of demonised unfairly. You can do some amazing basketry weaving with it, and you can also make friction fire with it. Here's a lovely hoop of lantana I made earlier, and you can use this to make fishing traps, hula hoops, winnowing devices, all sorts of things can be made from this. Now, another very fascinating thing about doing these fires is that lizards and spiders and various insects will actually run towards the fire. I don't know if it's an intentional suicide or what the explanation is. I've heard from a lady up north who does control burns with the indigenous, that you do a crescent moon sort of shape, and you do about 1.5 meters at a time when you're doing the fire, because the little lizards will run there and you have to pick them up and throw them away from the fire, otherwise they just get burnt. So how do you like that? Food cooks itself in front of you, and all you have to do is pick it up and eat it. Amazing. They taste delicious, those little skink lizards too. They're really nice. The explanation is that because they're a cold-blooded animal, they're running towards the fire to get warmth. All of a sudden it's too hot for them too quick. They think, wow, this is amazing. Oh my God, it's so hot. This is terrible, I'm dead. And that's kind of how that works. So, bit of a shame. By the way, random bit of extra knowledge, if you're into vaporizing or those little vape pen things, is you can actually vaporize your trichomes on your herbal plants by getting a glowing hot stick from the fire and putting it over your pipe. It won't burn the vegetation, but it'll evaporate the essential oils that are on that herb. We are burning uphill because we want to work a little bit more efficiently. We want to allow, because fire runs faster uphill than it does downhill. I think it's something like 10% increase for every 10% incline increase as well. So if the slope is a 10% slope versus a 20% slope, the fire will rush up that 20% gradient by about 10% extra speed. So, yeah. Don't quote me on that, alright? But it's something like that. So these straight pieces of lantana is what you use for friction fire, and really good for the fire plow technique. So we're adding carbon to the soil by doing this. We're adding nitrogen to the soil. We're activating seeds. We're getting rid of weeds and introduced species. So yeah, adding the nutrients, and that's going to create extra abundance. I'm going to take you for a little walk for a second here to another little section. So this is a lovely heath berry bush. And I did some burning around the foot of this about 1.5 months ago now. Last year it had maybe 3 berries on it. However, this year it's got at least 100. So that's quite a success from the burn. The burn did reach into here and did scald a few of the leaves, but they are growing back. So they've got new tips and stuff coming off. And that was just at the base here. Looking forward to harvesting this. It'll be good. They're nice and red when they ripen, very sweet. Make a jam out of them. So our fire's starting to finally pick up a little bit, which is great, because we did have rain, about 100 mils of it, about 4 days ago. So we've got a lovely, and this is the other thing, so when you're doing your burns, if you're doing it in summertime, you want to do it in the morning, and you want to put it out the fire by about 10 AM. And you want to do this exclusively on days where it has rained, if it's in summertime. On the morning after rain, or the day after that if you've had a fair bit of rain. Never when it's the drought. Ever. Never when it's the drought. Okay? Disclaimer, not saying go out and burn shit just for the sake of it. Okay? Now the other time is in the winter, and that's usually from the autumn equinox through to the spring equinox. Okay? So you've got 6 months in the middle of the year where you can just kind of burn whenever you want. Alright? Outside of that time, you want to be pretty cautious and do it just around early morning time when there's still a bit of a misty fog rising up from the rain that you've had the night or day before. The fire, as you can see, is only about, like, it's probably a foot high at the moment. It's up to my knee. We're going to say that's, well, yeah, that's probably a foot and a half up to my knee. It's probably a little lower. It's down here. It's about a foot high, okay? As it continues, we want to just keep on throwing all these twigs back in there. Want to really just get this to move up the hill and burn this grass out. Last year we had the catastrophic Australian bushfires where the entire country, well, so they say on the news, the entire country was on fire. Temperatures in this area got up to 47.8 degrees Celsius. Now, oftentimes these thicker pieces, I'll leave these alone to just kind of rot down because they feed the mycelial network. And for those of you who are new to that term, that's like the mushroom fibers, right? So that's really good. Mushroom fibers and mycelium are essential for a forest. I've got a few other piles of lantana around, but they're sitting on spots that are already burnt out. So I don't want to re-burn it in case I destroy the new growth that's coming through. But I'll gather a bit of that up as well. And that'll pretty much just kind of follow the path that I've given it. It's not really going to go anywhere else. Everything else is wet from the rains that we had the other day. And as you can see, it's very green, so it's only going to burn this stuff that's been sitting here for like a month. As it burns though, I will move that little wattle tree just off to the side to kind of keep it out of harm's way. Like so. Just sort of temporarily tuck it under this other tree here just to kind of keep it out of the way. Another cool thing about doing these fires is that it attracts the red-tailed black cockatoos because it opens up a lot of casuarina seeds and it exposes the ones on the ground too. So we are in a casuarina and aloe-casuarina forest. So we do have, and we also have a little creek off to the other side of that hill, which now flows thanks to the beautiful little dam I made, which is a seep dam. I call it a seep dam because it's not designed to hold water, it's designed to slowly release it. So there you go, it now flows when it didn't. So that's cool. It now actually, that creek now flows for something like an extra 6 months of the year, which is cool because before it didn't flow at all, except when it rained. So, yay. Oh golly. Forgot that there was fire there. The smell of lantana. So another cool thing about lantana is you can actually use it to smoke meats. And it gives an absolutely gorgeous smell. It's almost like cookies. It smells like cookies. It's really, really amazing. I'm going to come back to this later when this pile's almost completely done, and then we'll show you what we do. Toodles for now. Another thing I felt to mention is that your fire should never move fast enough so that you can't outwalk it. If you have to sort of pick up the pace to keep in pace with your fire, it's moving too fast. You should be able to walk faster than your fire. Okay? This allows it to be a really good exercise for the elderly as well, because the warmth invigorates your joints, which is great. Oh, and we'll show you how to put out the fire shortly when it comes to that. And usually you want to do that with soil rather than water, because water is a very precious resource and it's not really abundant all the time, but soil and sand are very abundant. We'll show you how to do that in a bit. So this next bit of information may seem obvious to hopefully most of you, But to the few who may not be aware, inhaling large amounts of smoke will kill you. Stay away from the smoke. Let's put it simple. Stay the hell away from the smoke. Don't let it get in your face. So if you are going to play around with the fire, you need a nice bit of hard wood. Now this is a piece of casuarina, the hardest wood in the world. The hardest wood specifically is the bull oak casuarina. Grows in the Northern Territory, a very hard wood, contains bits of silica and actually creates sparks when you try and cut it with a chainsaw. So that's phenomenal stuff. Now for its strength to weight ratio, it's better than a crowbar and absolutely fantastic as a digging stick. It's also fantastic for manipulating the ash of the fire. And what we're doing here is cooling down the fire where we've burnt. It's adding the soil that's underneath into the charcoal and ash, and it's spreading the nutrients to the surrounding area, which will also spread the seeds that have now been activated in there to create a larger germination space. Alrighty folks, so it's probably been about an hour and a half or so that we've been doing our burning, and we've pretty much gotten through all the lantana as well as a few bits off to the side that I added in. And we've managed to avoid burning any of our food resources, our casuarinas, our wattles, our various grasses and things like this of the clumping variety. There is a lot of smaller grasses that don't really produce much other than edible roots and things like this, little chewable roots I should say. And so now it's coming to the point where we want to put out the fire. We grab our trusty casuarina stick here, and as I've showed you already, we scratch up all throughout here, right? You want to sort of disperse any of the coals. Now you can blow into it to expose any of the hot embers that might be there. There's a couple little embers around here, and what you want to do is create a bit of a pit, right? And this pit is going to kick up a bit of extra soil, and we're going to use that to smother the flame. So we can bury all that flame in that soil there. If the flame got out of control, we would have to get our hands in here and throw all of that on there. Now, best to make a soil pit off to the side where the fire hasn't just been, so that the soil is nice and cold. That way you can really throw it into the fire real quick. Now, these little steamy bits that you might see coming up, these are another indicator that the fire is not yet dispersed, because those little wisps can start a whole nother fire. This, of course, is a day in the late winter. We've just had rain, so the risk of one of those little wisps starting another fire is almost non-existent. However, for best practice, we want to always have the habit of sticking around until all the wisps have gone and making sure that, like here, we see all those bits of orange embers that come up. When I give those a bit of a blow, you see that those are still very much alive. So again, just a bit of soil scratching up here to smother all that. And they'll lose their strength pretty quickly. We're going to do that same technique with the rest of the fire here once it's eventually burnt down. And another little thing you'll notice is when these wisps do eventually start dying down, you will get little insects in the Noceum family, or Norceum family, I'm not sure how you pronounce it, but the family that mosquitoes and midges are a part of. Various animals, insects are attracted to smoke and will go to an area after it has been burnt. So life comes after fire. I hope you have all enjoyed that. Make sure you are safe with regards to fire. Have some water to put it out if you feel you need to, but soil is better than water. Water will create a lot of steam and that can cause a burning. The soil on fire doesn't create that, it just smothers it instantly. Keep the smoke out of your face, don't inhale smoke because it is the leading cause of death in a fire situation. It's not actually the fire that kills you, it's the smoke inhalation. So stay out of the path of the smoke. If you're under 18, make sure you have a parent or guardian supervising you doing this. Be safe. And for best results also, get your local fire brigade involved in this and have some supervised help. Never do any burning in summer unless you're a trained professional and it's immediately after a rain, a good lot of rain, and early in the morning, putting out the fire before 10 a.m. Also, never have the fire higher than 2 feet in height, and never have the fire moving faster than you can walk. You should always be able to outwalk a fire. And don't burn your food resources. Keep it away from the plants that you want to eat. Take care of yourselves, folks, and have yourselves a lovely day. Bye. Every day we're feeding the fire, in the evening we're feeding lots of fire tonight. Gotta keep the fire alive, the hungry fire ignites, the hungry fire ignites.